Church. Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BPT Founder Church Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Bhad Paramahamsa Prachika Church Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Pantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavind Ki Jai. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Paranga. So on this 14th day of October, 2018, in Phoenix, Arizona, we're speaking at the Sunday Festival, known as Krishna Fest in San Diego. And tonight I'd like to deal with a couple of topics. One is the overall philosophical conundrum Srila Prabhupada gave us between Shreyas and Preyas. You may have heard this term, Shreyas and Preyas. And also the importance of prayer and what to pray for. These are two related subjects. So I'm going to begin with a famous prayer from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Chapter 8, the prayers of Queen Kunti. Some of you may know this verse. This is near the end of her prayers. And just a note on prayer. I once did a little seminar with Ramapad Maharaj in Chicago. He has a retreat every Christmas, New Year's. And a few years ago, we decided to do one on Vandanam. Vandanam is, as you may know, one of the 9 processes of devotional service. But what exactly is Vandanam? Vandanam, we know we bow down. Vandeham Shivaro Shiyutakama. But also Vandanam is listed as prayer. So I began to think about that, the relationship between offering obeisances and prayer. And when I did some research in the Bhagavatam, which is full of prayers, I discovered something very interesting, that Vandanam has really, almost always has 3 elements to it. One, of course, is offering obeisances. Another is glorification, and the third is some request. The traditional meaning of prayer in English is that you approach God or some great personality and pray for something. You ask for something. So, and sure enough, Queen Kunti's prayers has all of these 3 in abundance. Begins with the word Namaste, Purushaṁ Tvātyam Vishwadam Bhagavate. Begins with Namaste and ends with Namaste. The last prayer is Namaste. She's offering obeisances. And in between, she's glorifying Krishna, and she is remembering all of the, how he saves them, she and her exalted sons, the Pandavas, so many dangers. And then near the second to last prayer is my favorite. And I memorized it many years ago when I first encountered it in Brooklyn in 1973. And here's how it goes. Many of you may know this prayer, so you can chant along. Trayame ananya vishaya Vati madhupate sakrit Ratamudin Bahataradha Gange Bhaudhamadhandati. So I'm going to read Srila Prabhupada's translation and part of his purport here, and then I'll give you my little poetic rendition. So she's praying, O Lord of Madhu. Madhus are part of the Yadu dynasty. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Prabhupada's purport, part of it. Perfection of pure devotional service is attained when all attention is diverted toward the transcendental loving service of the Lord. To cut off the tie of all other affections does not mean complete negation of the finer elements, like affection for someone else. Her previous prayer was quite heroic. She was saying, please cut off my affection for my adopted sons, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. And then this one is that let it all be directed to you. Because the battle is over, there's been won. Krishna is getting ready to leave and go back to Dwarka. So it's clear that he'll be leaving altogether soon. So she's winding up and she says, let me not be diverted. Let me be one-pointed at me. To cut off the tie of all of their affections does not mean complete negation of the finer elements like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others, because this is a symptom of life. The symptoms of life, such as desire, anger, hankerings, feelings of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. Only the objective has to be changed. Desire cannot be negated, but in devotional service, the desire is changed only for the service of the Lord in place of desire for sense gratification. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Vidave. So inspired by this prayer, I put it into a little English verse. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. And you'll find that this kind of prayer is very common amongst our acharyas and Krishna himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya. In the Shikshastika, these essential eight instructions on the chanting of the holy name and the perfection of the chanting. In the middle of there, Lord Chaitanya teaches us what to pray for. When chanting, what should we be calling out to Krishna? What are we asking for? So first he says what we shouldn't pray for. In the ideal sense, because we're trying to escape from this material world. If we pray for something in this world, then we're sure to stay in the world. So he says, Nadanam, Nadanam Nasundarim, Kavitan Va Jagadish Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmani Shware, Bhavadan Bhakted Ahaitaki Prahi. Wealth and women followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. So this is a very important verse, because the common things that we go to God for, and even Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if the pious, when they're in need of money, they're in trouble, or they're curious about God, or they really want some knowledge, they'll come to me. But if you go to God for some material reason, then he may give you that benediction, but that's not going to help you to solve the ultimate problems of your life. And actually, Krishna, you can go to other gods for that. You may go to Shiva, you may go to Chandra, Surya, Kali, for your material needs. But if you go to Krishna, you better watch out. He may take away all your property, as a blessing. What is Kunti saying? Kunti is praying. I can't pray like this. He said, she's remembering in these prayers, there's about 12, 15 of them, all the difficulties that they went through in the forest and being persecuted by Dhritarashtra's sons, and so much. Her very name, Kunti, means she's always crying. You know that? She's crying. So, but they never forgot Krishna. They always were praying for him. And as he says here, let the dangers come again and again. Because by those dangers, we see you again and again. In other words, in distress, the devotee doesn't lose faith in God. Rather, he calls out more fervently for God's protection. And that's when Krishna really gives the mercy. So she's saying, by these difficulties, we saw you because we fervently prayed to you. And by seeing you, we won't have to see birth and death. Is it? The real problem is birth and death in the most basic sense. So if you pray for anything or work for anything, even without God consciousness, well, in this material world, you're simply entangling yourself more and more. So Lord Chaitanya is teaching us, I don't want wealth, I don't want followers, I don't want sense gratification, I don't want to go to heaven, I don't even want liberation. You see? I don't even want liberation, because liberation without bhakti is false. It's like fool's gold. This is yem ye aravindaksha vimukta maninas. The devas are praying to say, my dear Lord, the Krishna's in the womb, Devaki, and they come incognito into the chamber there, and they're offering all these wonderful prayers. And one of the prayers is that besides the bhaktas, There are those whose consciousness and intelligence really isn't purified because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. But they think that by great austerities, repressing the senses, they've attained mukti. Mukta manana. They have the idea that they're liberated. But even though they may rise up, a very few, to Brahman platform, because they are averse to serving your lotus feet, they have no mukta standi there, they come down again. It's unnatural. It's unnatural to repress all the desires and the activities of the senses. This is what Prabhupada is saying in the purport. Affection is natural. So we have a family, we should do the best for that family, anyone who we have influence over, and introduce them to their eternal friend, Krishna. Isn't what Dr. Shabdev says? If you have any kind of responsibility, guru nasat sat, swajano nasat, you're a guru, a relative, a father, a mother, a wife, a deva, anyone who has any influence over anyone else or authority, then you must be able to deliver them from birth and death. Now, every living entity is independent. You raise your children, you do the best you can. And if you give them all your life and soul to try to deliver them, that's where you, and then it's up to them after that. Everyone's an independent soul. Many parents have found that out, devotional parents. The kids are not as interested as they had hoped. But that's another thing. The idea is that the real affection is expressed by introducing someone to their eternal friend and their eternal love. And those who have been blessed in that way really thank the Bhakti Pradashika Guru or the Sangha. So then the next prayer of Lord Chaitanya, he's teaching us how to pray. And this is a kind of a generic prayer. He addresses God as Jagadisha, the Lord of the universe. Any religion can do that. If God is anything, he's the Lord of the universe. But the next prayer, Krishna in Vrindavan, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, Patitam Mam Vishame Babam Bodho, Kripaya Tapapada Pundaja, Stita Dhuni Sadrasham Vichintaya. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace, consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. This is really how we should feel, that Krishna would pick me up out of this blind well of illusion. And I wanted to share with you another prayer. This is by King Kulashekar, the prayers of King Kulashekar. Srila Prabhupada loved that book. He was working on a translation, and when he published the Bhagavatam, even though he hadn't finished the book, he said other books by the same author, the prayers of King Kulashekar. And eventually, you know, I have a history, as mentioned, of working on Srila Prabhupada's books. So throughout the 80s, from 83 to 89, I worked with Vidyananda Das Goswami and Gopapurananda Prabhu on completing Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. Prabhupada completed through 10th canto, chapter 13, the killing of Aghasura. And the next chapter is Brahma's prayer. It's a very important chapter. You know? They're all important. So I had a great opportunity to help in that. So we finished the project in 1989, and then we had a meeting. Well, what other books should we do? Now that we finished this Bhagavatam, it was important. So I said, well, why don't we finish the books that Prabhupada started and didn't finish? We know that he wanted those published, and they included two, Mukundamala Stotra and Narada Bhakti Sutra. Narada Bhakti Sutra is not so read by devotees, but it's a really nice book, very important. You can read those sutras. Sutras are a little aphorisms like the Brahma Sutra, Vedanta Sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Very little aphorism. It requires explanation. That's why there's so many tikas. So Narada Bhakti Sutra is like 84, 85 verses. And it's all on the subject of bhakti. First he defines prema, and then he tells you how to get it, and he says all the improvement. You can read the whole thing through in just the sutras in a matter of 10, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes. 84. But it's very illuminating. So we finished those, and I became even more acquainted. Satsrup Maharaj, he was the one who did the tikas, Gopi did the translation that Prabhupada didn't do. So this prayer is one of my favorites from that. I didn't, but I know it by heart. He says, Andasya me edita viveka mahadanasya. Chaurai pabo balavan India nama dehai. Mohan the Kupakahade Vinipatasya Devesh Dehi Kupanasya Kadavalam. So he's describing there, I don't have the English translation memorized, but he's saying, the thieves of my senses, you see, my powerful senses are like thieves, and they've stolen my treasure. You know what the greatest treasure is as a human being? The power of discrimination. I'm really discriminating what is right, what is wrong, and how to act. But my senses have stolen that, covered it over, and they've thrown me into deep well, blind well of illusion. Into the well of Mohan, blind well of illusion. So now what am I going to do? You know, if you fall into a blind well in India, some of you may know, you live from the country, a blind well means it's not used anymore. There's no water, so it's become overgrown with grass, but the well is still there. You can see the hazard. You're walking along, you know, whistling away, and suddenly you fall down and you call out, but nobody can hear you. It's a dangerous situation. So we're kind of in that well. We're blind. We don't even know we're in the well. And that's but it's a very dangerous situation. So this brings to mind another prayer I'd like to see. So he's saying, please lift me up out of this well. This is the theme. Please save me. Now, there's another prayer, two other prayers that also use the same image. One is by Uddhava. Uddhava is a very intimate associate of Krishna. He was his companion and advisor in Mathura and Dwarka, Brahman, and Krishna chose him to speak his last instruction for the Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto, which is kind of an expansion on the Bhagavad Gita. Same subjects, but more detailed. So in the middle of that, you know how every so often, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, King Parikshit is encouraging Shukadev, please go on. And they get to the 10th canto, now please, you know, just kind of visualize the scene. It's very dramatic. Parikshit is sitting there amongst all these great sages and saints. They've come in from different parts of the universe, and they're sitting at this incredible event where the king of the world has renounced the kingdom, having been cursed. He could have counteracted the curse of the Brahmin boy, but he accepted it as Krishna's destiny's blessing. So he gave up the kingly dress and kingship, and he just sat down by the Ganges waiting to see what would happen. And so Shukadeva Goswami, the greatest learned sage of the time, he comes and sits on the Vyasasana and begins speaking the Bhagavatam. Now this is the 10th canto, so that's a good part of it has been spoken. Parikshit wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking, and he wasn't sleeping. He was just sitting there and listening. And so at this point, he says, you know, I'm not feeling any pains from this. I'm simply subsisting on the nectar of this Krishna Katha that you've been spoken. This is how enlightened he was. So similarly, Uddhava, in his Uddhava Gita, in the 11th canto, periodically he says, oh, please go on speaking, go on speaking. So this is one of those verses. So here, Uddhava takes the role, as they often do, like Prahlad does and others, of a conditioned soul. And so he uses the same image of falling into this blind well or this snake hole of the material world. It says, Dashtam Janam Sam Bhaktitam Vilasmin, Halahina Chuddha Sukhodu Tarsham, Samudharayanam Kripayapavaga Vitubi Asincha Mahamapa. So Dashtam means bitten. This person, Janam, Dashtam Janam Sam Bhaktitam, I've fallen into this snake hole of the material world, and I'm being bitten by the poisonous snake of time. Kalahina. And in spite of that, Shudra Sukhodu Tarsham, I have a great thirst, maintaining a great thirst, even in this dangerous situation, a great thirst for insignificant sense gratification. Shudra Sukha. Shudra Sukha means very insignificant, but it's my all in all. So how to be saved? So he says, please lift me up out of this well. Samudharayanam Kripayapavaga, by your merciful words which give liberation. Vachobir. Vachobir asincha mahanabhava. Vachobir means asincha, sprinkle your nectarian words upon me. Now this is a good prayer before reciting Bhagavatam, before reciting Bhagavad Gita. You can say it if you're going to study Bhagavad Gita. So the point is that we shouldn't ask Krishna or God for anything material. we should ask for the process of bhakti, or pure love. That which leads to love for him, which includes liberation, or the love itself. The words that he speaks is the same. And now I wanted to bring up this topic of shreyas and prayas, which is very pertinent. What do we aspire for in this world? And in our devotion, what should we ask for? What should we pray for? What should we try to achieve? So I brought out a modern symbol, which you all recognize, of prayas. Prayas means immediate good. How can I enjoy now? Or maybe a little later, But basically, it's self-centered. This is prayas. Shreyas is ultimate good, both for myself and for everyone else. You see the contrast. So here's the symbol of shreyas, of prayas, excuse me. Recognize it? The credit card. Buy now, pay later. You used to have that all the time as you'd see it on the signs. Buy now, pay later. Now that you don't see it so much, because the credit card that's the meaning of it. Buy now, pay later. In other words, enjoy now and don't worry about later. You pay later. Is it? But you find out that, okay, I enjoyed, now the enjoyment is over, but the payment's going to be more pain than I enjoyed. Isn't it? And especially if you get behind, right? Isn't it the rate goes way up? Oh my God. So that's material life. Try to enjoy now and don't worry about later, But later comes, because that's the nature of time. And a little bit of enjoyment now is a whole ton of suffering later. The worst thing about material enjoyment is that you're sure to come back again in the material body. If your whole life is based on material, it may be mode of goodness enjoyment. You may like to go hear Beethoven songs instead of rock music or whatever they have to say. That doesn't matter. It's material also. Even going to the heavenly planets and hearing the Gandharvas sing, it's also material. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Chine punye lokam nishanti. That even if you do get to Indraloka and enjoy godly delights, when your punya is over, when your card is maxed out, then you have to go back to work. No more vacation, no more cruise ship. You understand? So the same thing is there on the larger scale. You may get so much punya by sacrifice and worship in this lifetime with the aim of going to heaven, and if you do it just right, you go up there. But that's not a solution to your problem. It's just a more exaggerated form of gross enjoyment on this plane. So this is what Arjun the conclusion he came to after the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. For him, of course, he's a devotee. So his desire, his material desire, was to see his so-called enemies, which he realized were really my dear friends and relatives and my worshipful guru, alive. Or at least let me have nothing to do with killing them. That was his. It's sense gratification, although of a very high sort. It's mode of goodness. But it wasn't transcendental, and he was torn on the chariot there. His good friend, who he knew was Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knew he wanted him to fight. So there's that. And then his gut reaction, his feeling, which he's justifying by all kinds of Vedic arguments, it wasn't just off the top of his head. But still, he was torn and had this existential, ontological paralysis, if you will, drops his bow, starts trembling, he's crying, And then he comes to his senses, and the key verse there that turned the whole Bhagavad Gita turns there, really begins, is Karpanya Dosha Bhava Subhava, Prichami Tam Dharma Samuda Cheta, Yakshayaksya Nishtitam Bruhitam Me, Shishisteham Sharimam Pannam. My dear Lord, due to this miserly weakness, my real characteristic as this heroic Kshatriya is now covered over. That's it. Karpanya Swabhava. My Swabhava, my real nature, is now lost, and I'm just trembling. I dropped my bow, which is a big thing for a Kshatriya that he wants to avoid. Prichami Tvam Dharma Samudacheta. Please speak to me, to this person who am bewildered about real Dharma. Dharma is essential for human life. Without Dharma, we're just polished animals. Dharma means a process you accept And if it's what real dharma is, for your elevation to perfection in this world. And so he was bewildered. What was the right thing to do in the realm of dharma? So he prays to Krishna, Nik Shreya, here's the word Shreya. He says, please tell me for certain. This is the thing. You approach a genuine spiritual preceptor who's coming in the line from Krishna, and you can be certain. You have to make sure it's a genuine article. You can be certain that the instruction will be non-different from what Krishna gives, but just in this time and this place. Prabhupada was that he gave us so many gifts, but his greatest gift was his books, and they were given to us in the West here, in English. We could understand. That was the whole thing. Otherwise, if it's locked in the Sanskrit and Bengali, then what's good is going to do this. So this is what the Acharya does. He gives the instruction just suitable for the recipients of a certain time and place. And look at the result. Worldwide movement is growing like anything. So Arjuna turned and he said, now I'm not your friend. I mean, he's still his friend, but I'm not acting in the position of your friend. I am your shishya, your disciple. Shishya means someone who agrees to be controlled by the words of the guru. The word shas means control. What's some other words with shas as the root, Shastra and Shastra. Shastra is a weapon. If you're not controlled by Shastra, you'll be controlled by Kali's weapons. That's your choice. You can be controlled by Shastra, which is for our ultimate good, or you'll be controlled by Shastra for our punishment until we learn our lesson. That's our two choices. So, excuse me. This is real. So, the Lord Chaitanya is teaching us how to preach. Arjuna is teaching us how to surrender and how to aim for the Shreyas. Now, for that, we have to learn what is the ultimate Shreya. And it's clear from the Vedic teachings, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not something for our immediate pleasure. It's not something that's related to our own pleasure, even subtle pleasure. It's ultimately to break free from the round of birth and death, from the samsara chakra, and to return to our natural position in the spiritual world as Krishna's loving servants. That's where our real happiness and security lies, not in this material plane. Now, we have to live on this plane and in this life. So the art is how to live your life in a wholesome way, but with the focus ultimately on our spiritual life and our spiritual perfection. And that's what Srila Prabhupada gave. He also taught Varnashram. We yet to manifest that in perfection. But that's, what is the essence of Varnashram Dharma? Right in the second chapter, first canto. Atak Kumbha Dvija Sreshta Varnashrama Vibhakashaha Swanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhi Haritoshana. All of the varnas, the social orders, and the ashrams, the spiritual orders, the perfection is found in the satisfaction of Hari. And you'll find that if everyone's working toward the satisfaction of Hari, everyone is satisfied. It's not that the Shudras are envious of the Vaishyas and the Brahmins, and the sannyasis are lording it over the other orders. That's Maya. That's material. That's a materialistic corruption of Varnashram. But truly, it's a fact that if everyone is working toward the satisfaction of Hari, no matter what position you are, socially or spiritually, you'll be satisfied. Just like in the kirtan, right? Kirtan is a perfect example. That's the ultimate Yuga Dharma. If everyone is dancing nicely and chanting, absorbing the holy name, is anyone thinking, oh, I wonder who has a better job than me? It's not like that. Doesn't matter. You see, the sannyasis are dancing with the brahmacharis, and the ladies are all dancing together. Everybody's with Krishna. That's the only platform of true universal satisfaction. Otherwise, the false ego gets in and it divides us. And that's Maya's trick. So another verse that describes this well, a very illustrative. This is another prayer by Rupa Goswami. I'd like to share with you. And from Rupa Goswami, you're going to just get these pure prayers. So he says, Manasajapani Jushte, Labdapatosmi Dushte, Timadagahna Rupe, Hanta Samsara Kupe, Ajitanakala Rakshahe Tamuddara Raksham Upanayamamahaste Bhakti Rajun Namaste. Now, can anyone tell me what a Bhakti Raju is? You know what a Raju is? It's a rope. It's a rope, the rope of Bhakti to pull you out of the well. So he says, fallen in this deep and dark and dirty well of Maya, threatened by the snake of lust, whose venom burns like fire. Helplessly I pray, O Lord, whose strength is ne'er in doubt, place the rope of Bhakti in my hands and pull me out. Is it? So you can imagine, we're in this well, and Krishna's up there, he's holding down the rope of Bhakti. So what is our responsibility? Hold on to the rope. Holding on to the rope tightly means following sadhana bhakti strictly. Otherwise, even Krishna can't pull us out. He's all powerful, but if we're determined to stay here, that's our little independence. So we should be determined to get out, and that means to rely on Krishna and his instructions and his representatives, and hold on tight to those instructions. That's our real lifeline, is it? And our practice. So and there's one more prayer I have to share with you. This is kind of the at a very high level, but it's a prayer that we can all offer, and it follows this mood of glorifying Krishna, describing Krishna, and then asking for something. Ujanga the Pachandaka, Spuda Prakanta Chudapure, Krishna Prakanjala, Pramina Potaprinka Prame. Atangduhatastati, Gunakati, the Kali Priye, Podaspadatume Mohus, Pai Mukunda, Shuddha Rati. Who can guess what Shuddha Rati is? Pure love. So he says, you wear the best of crests, a crown of perfect peacock plumes. Your dancing glances stung the bees, meanderings the blooms. You relish love play in the cottage by Kalindi's shore. O Krishna, may pure love for you be mine forevermore. So, any questions or comments on these things? I got more. If you don't have any questions, just thought there might be some. Okay, so since I was advertised as a poet, which I'm not, I'm just a fool, I'd like to go through this one little poem that I wrote. I like to tell how it came about. Because, I'm always dealing with words. I mean, I've been an editor for 45 years, so I've got all kinds of dictionaries and things on my computer. And when I got into this poetry writing, there's three tools you need. You need a regular dictionary. You need a thesaurus, which tells you synonyms for words. And there's something you may not know called a rhyming dictionary. Now it's online. You key in, serenity, and you'll find so many words that rhyme with serenity like that. So when I started, it was actual physical books. So I'm going through here and there, and I'm finding I come across the word in my work, cupidity. Now, cupidity is a word, English word. It obviously started, meaning more or less lust, but somehow it's come to mean greed mostly. So let's think of it as a nice combination of lust and greed. Okay? All those wonderful things that keep us bound to this world. So I said, well, this obviously is the seed of a poem, because what's that really favorite word, a really important word that rhymes with cupidity? Does anybody guess? Stupidity. Oh, well, okay, we can work with that. So I started working, and I found that there's so many words in English that end in ity. So I started calling this the ity poem. So it ended up as the fall and redemption of the soul. So here it goes, and we can explore this as long as you want. Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. With pure simplicity and love and sensibility, will serve him with humility. For when a living entity rejects his true identity and out of sheer stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity, and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of life, divorce, and anxiety, till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. What is it? So there's a lot in there. So I'd like to just run through it real quick. So the first thing is, where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. So it's important for us to read about and hear about the spiritual world and what's going on there. We have the whole 10th canto, the Brahma Samhita. Now, as you probably noticed, I love shlokas. It's a poet, Sanskrit poet. So if you read the Brahma Samhita and you go to the end of the Govinda prayers, you're going to find these two incredible verses describing the spiritual world. So it's nice to memorize these or contemplate them so we can be attracted to work to go there. So maybe some of you may know these verses. Shriya Kanta Kanta Padma Parusha Kalpatadavo Druma Bhuvischinda Managanamahi Toya Mamatam Katagan Natim Brahmanamati Vakshi Priyasati Chadanandam Jyoti Padamapitana Svadapapicha Sayatra Shirabdi Sabati Subabim Justice Sumaha Nimeshadakyovan Vajitindihiyatra Samaya Vadeshvetat Vipam Tamahamiha Golo Kamitiyam Vidandaste Sandachikudavadachara Katipriye. Now this gives such a wonderful picture for the mind. These verses are for meditating on. You don't need any video machine or anything like that. It's all there in the sound. So what does he say? Shriya Kanta, Kanta Padma Purusha. First thing is that all of the beloveds there are goddesses of fortune. And their one lover is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Padma Purusha. Kalpatadava Brahma, all of the trees are desire trees. You can get any fruit, is organic fruit, by the way, tree ripened in any season to offer to Krishna. Can you imagine the most exquisite mangoes and figs and everything else to offer to Krishna? So that's the Kalpatadava Brahma. Bhumi, all the land is Chintamani gem. And the water is nectar. The walking is dancing. The talking is singing. And one can always hear Krishna's dear flute playing in the distance, right? And everything is glowing with this spiritual potency of bliss. Chidananda Jyoti, Asvadu. And you can taste it. In that land, there are all these cows, these Surabhi cows, and they're so blissful that they're always exuding milk that's muddying the ground. And not a second passes away. There's no past, there's no future, there's only the eternal present. Nobody gets old, nothing changes. Everyone is completely satisfied. That land of Goloka is known to only a very few pure souls who walk upon it. So that's where we want to go. Felicity abounds. So one may very well ask, well, why did we ever leave? Why did we leave? It's a good question. And the answer is, there's no true answer to that. Somehow or other, we become, somebody's going to have to take charge of these kids. Okay. If they can go behind a closed door, that's okay. Hare Krishna. Sorry. I'm distracted. So, why would we leave? So the answer is that Krishna, Raso Vaisa, he lived. What does he want? What does God want? He has everything he might want. But what he really relishes is these loving exchanges with all his servants and his friends and his lovers and his parents. Now, love has to be freely given. Prabhupada famously said, you'll become famous after I tell you. Krishna doesn't want us to love him at the point of a revolver. You see, love me or else. That's not love. That's slavery. So he takes a risk when he's manifested us eternally. But you say when because that's how we think. Is that we have to have a minute independence. Then the love has meaning. If we can withdraw it, and we give it constantly, eternally, then that's real love. So there's a certain percentage, a smaller percentage, 3/4 who never come down here. They never have that problem with turning from Krishna. But we are part of the quarter of the living entities, Ekapad Bhuti, who have somehow become curious to try to compete with Krishna and enjoy separately. And for millions of births of Brahma, who knows how long, up and down different species, different planets, we've been living this illusion. Now we have the clue about returning. In other words, all we have to do is turn back to Krishna and pray again for purity and humility and serving him again. But this is described in the fall. So when a living entity rejects his true identity, and out of sheer stupidity, surrenders to cupidity, means lust and greed and illusion. That's the fall. And the wonderful thing about it is, because there's no time in the spiritual world. When we go back, this was directly described by Srila Prabhupada, all of these millions of births we have experienced will be just like a little dream we had. It'll seem like a split second past. Bad dream. So the fall is really falling asleep and dreaming all these bodies one after another. It's all a huge illusion. What's the significance of it? You strive very hard in this lifetime, you achieve so much, this and that, but in the time of death, you completely forget it all and you start a whole new chapter. It doesn't come to anything. So, loses all sagacity, means wisdom or understanding, and loses the capacity to understand reality. And with that, the curb of sensuality, the senses and the mind take hold. And so, in that, immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives. So this covering stays for many, many, countless lives. We don't even, until we contact God's devotee. By the way, that's the actual pronunciation of it. It rhymes with brevity. Perhaps of utmost brevity. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. Even a moment's association with the pure devotee, if one is receptive to the influence, meaning hearing and association, that can awaken one's affinity for words of the divinity. You become interested, you get a book, or you open that book that you've had on your shelf for 10 years because you got some association where now you're interested, So that's where the real influence comes, through the sound vibration, the association. And by that, you wake up, you said, cast away your vanity, and you develop new humility. Because you have to recognize the supremacy of the Lord. And then, by cultivation of bhakti, one returns to the eternity or the spiritual world. For eternity, Prabhupada described it, what is it? How does that? Krishna said, once burned, twice shy. This is one of these mottos in English. I don't know if Benjamin Franklin or something. But it's a fact of life. If you go through a harrowing experience, you'll be less likely to do those things that create that experience again. Or Prabhupada said, a child doesn't know any better, is in the lap of his mother, she likes something to cook, and he's putting his hand in the fire. Now stop! Don't! Stop! Don't! Sometimes, okay. So he touches it, gets a little bit burned, never again. He remembers. So we've been burned in this material life. When we go back to Godhead, even though we're not going to be thinking about this world, we'll have the muscle memory, so to speak, and not to do that again. That was really foolish, wasn't it? Hare Krishna. So now we come to any comments or questions on this particular point. It's the basic understanding of Krishna consciousness. We've fallen. The way back is by turning again to Krishna. Fear is generated by forgetting Krishna, becoming absorbed in his energy, turning away, and everything is upside down. As Pura says, the exemplar of praise, of prayers, he says, Anityanatma dukkeshu viparya materiyaham. Viparya means backwards. Says that which is not eternal, I'm taking to be eternal. My material association. That which is not me, this body, I'm taking to be me. And that which is sources of misery, I'm taking to be sources of pleasure. Again with the Shreyas and prayers. And in this situation, I've completely forgotten you. I'm trying to enjoy the dualities of this world. I'm just like a foolish animal who's on the edge of an oasis, very thirsty, and then right next to his feet is a pool of water, but it's overgrown by plants and things, and he can't see it. He looks out, there's the mirage, runs out into the desert and dies. We're looking in the desert as a material world for the pleasure, when right in our heart is Krishna. the ocean of bliss, reservoir of pleasure. We're going outside. So by chanting the holy name, practicing bhakti, we contact that pleasure trove within our hearts. That's why anyone, doesn't matter who, what background, if you chant and you become a little Krishna conscious, you feel little dollops of bliss, right? And then you can sustain that and you become sustained. So that's my little message of the day. Take this process seriously, chant regularly, associate with devotees, read Srila Prabhupada's books, and try to adopt the instructions in your own life. And it's all auspicious. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. A question or a comment?
Thank you so much for the Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. You were mentioning about Shreyas and prayers. The Shreyas is the ultimate goal, and the ultimate, Shreyas is to go back to Godhead, the spiritual world. I was having a discussion with one of my friends along the same line that our ultimate goal is to go back to Godhead, and we need to act towards that. The question, the counter question that I got was, if that is our goal, why do we need to fulfill so many responsibilities in our day-to-day life? We have so many other responsibilities. So our discussion kind of ended there. It's to be continued, but would you like to share?
Well, this is the challenge that we have, and what I think what Prabhupada would answer is that we have to have a stability in order to practice devotional service. If you do anything, too quickly or out of sentiment, then you find your natural position may become unsteady, and your mind is unsteady. So you find yourself normally in a family and so forth, a job. So the point is not to immediately say, well, I know I'm supposed to give up everything, so let me just walk off. But that's irresponsible. And the chances are very high that at one point you regret that and you won't be able to practice nicely. So there's a process. There's something called an ashram. Ashram is a situation that's conducive to practicing devotional service. So there are brahmacharya ashram, but there's also grahastha ashram. So there's a way of being in family life, having a job, children, and everything, but still prosecuting devotional service. And the fact is, there's been very advanced devotees in this movement. There are who are grahasthas. And Prabhupada would like to point out that most of Lord Chaitanya's disciples and followers are all grahasthas. And he even said that, all of the acharyas, whether it's Ramanujacharya, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, or Madhvacharya, Vyasadeva, they all had parents. They all were little babies at one time. So everybody has gone through this family life. That's how we got here. So it's not that has to be rejected, but we have to accept the guidance of how to structure our material life, so that we can practice devotional service and successfully at a certain point leave it, because that shouldn't be to the end of life, because the attachments are there. So it's almost like if you're wrapped in bandages, so you're recuperating. So they say, well, these bandages are really, I don't need them. You just take them off completely, But that's not a successful strategy. One has to go through the recuperating process and gradually be cured. So that's what Grahastha Ashram is about. And there are rules, but at the same time, it is a feasible process, and we've seen it work. So that's the idea, is that, yes, the goal is pure bhakti, which includes complete detachment from this world and everything in it. But to get to that goal, we have to follow a process so that we don't run before we're ready to walk or fall. That's basically it. I was fortunate enough. I joined up. I was 25. I wasn't 18, and I'd already been through some traumatic experiences. I won't get into detail. And I was ready for some shelter, So I joined the Brahmacharya ashram, and I was, and I love to chant. And so maybe, everyone has a previous life. So I've been through all that, both in this life and previous life. But everyone is an individual. But the goals should be kept in mind and the process of how to get there. That's what I would say. Yes, sir. No, wait a second. We have a mic here so everyone can hear you.
How does one, or at what point can one say that I found peace? Do all this found peace, do all this devotion. You dedicate your life to prayers. There's always, you do it for the purposes of finding peace to yourself and oneness with God. How do you know that you've arrived?
Well, that's a good question. And Srila Prabhupada would say, you don't need a certificate. You can understand. And the easiest way to understand that you're making some advancement is that you're less attracted to the things what we call Maya and that kind of enjoyment. And you're really, really very attracted to the processes of devotional service, such as hearing and serving and all of these things. It's something that's as intimate as your own heart. You can understand. The peace is found. What is the peace is a very good topic. It's dealt with in the Bhagavad Gita. Extensively in the second chapter. And the basic summary of it: Vihaya kama nyaksan chaliti nixpaha nirmamo adahankara sashantim adigachiti. Shanti is peace. You're looking for peace. So here's the formula that Krishna gives. Now it's a very advanced form. We have to work to it, but this is the status. Vihaya kama nyaksavan, to give up, to have no material desires. To understand that nothing is mine and have no false identity separate from Krishna. And each one of those can be explained. We don't have time. But the basic principle is the purity of devotional service results in this attitude. It says, everything belongs to Krishna, including me. And I'm really happy and satisfied and blissful simply glorifying Krishna, serving Krishna, and meditating on him, and serving the devotees. And we see it's not an impossible platform to be on. We saw that with Srila Prabhupada. Even in the most distressing situations, you had a whole battle in Bombay to get the land. They were trying to steal the land back, and it's an incredible story. But Prabhupada kept his equipoise throughout the whole thing. He had a whole society he's trying to run at the same time, writing letters every day. But he had a certain serenity when you were around him. You could see that at the same time he was dealing with all these things, he had this inner ballast because he's always with Krishna. So it is possible to be peaceful in this world. We have great examples like Prahlad Maharaj from Shastra, and even in great danger. So it requires the development of Krishna consciousness, the training of the mind. Otherwise, if the mind is always absorbed in material things, you'll never be peaceful. Because the material world is always changing. Even if you get to a situation, and now I've got it all together, in the back of your mind, oh my God, it could be threatened by this, by that, by this, by that. There's always like another Hurricane Michael coming down the pike. I mean, those poor people in Miami and Florida, they weren't expecting a month ago that their entire world was going to be uprooted and that they're going to be homeless, wandering around. But that's the material world. So we have to get on a platform above the material world, and that is with Krishna. So no matter what happens, we have our inner peace and our inner balance. That's possible with Krishna. We really need to end. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Sure. Okay, so we're gonna have another kirtan? All right, let's do it. I missed the other one. I thought it was 5:30 we're gonna start. Oh no, I can stand up actually.
Hare Krishna. So big thank you to His Grace Dravida Prabhu for a wonderful class. So once again, through Thursday, we'll have Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning, 7:35 to 8:15. It will be live streamed, so if you cannot make it to the temple, please tune in to the YouTube and our channel, and you'll be able to hear Prabhu. And then in the evenings for the next 3 nights, Bhagavad Gita class from 7 to 7:45, and Prashadam will be served after that. So please come and join us for the next 3 evenings. If you cannot join us in the mornings, and take His Grace Dravida Prabhu's association. And there's so much we can learn, and beautiful poetry. So it makes it very, very easy for us to understand so many verses. So please make an effort to visit the temple for the next 3 nights, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Prabhu leaves Thursday morning after the Srimad Bhagavatam class. So, and we're very, very happy to have him here. So I'll keep my announcements very short today, because we want to hear Kirtan by His Grace Dravida Prabhu. So today's sponsor is Anil Ketia and family. If they can come and receive the Mahaprasad. Anil Ketia and family. Anybody can sponsor the feast for birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, simple annadan.
Yeah, there's another one.
So anybody can sponsor the feast for different reasons, and we also make cakes. Now we have Gauranga Prabhu here. He makes really beautiful, fancy cakes. So if you want to celebrate a birthday here, or even take a cake home, he can make you a nice birthday cake, anniversary, whatever. So, and so coming Saturday, if you're following Ekadashi, Saturday is Ekadashi, so fasting from grains and beans. It's the Pashan Kusha Ekadashi this coming Saturday. Then on Thursday, we are celebrating Dashera, the first time ever at this temple. We're going to be burning the effigy of Ramana outside, and we'll have programs from 6 to 8 coming Saturday, coming Thursday. And we know it's a working day, so it's going to be, everything's going to be on time, punctual and short. So be here at 6, and we'll have Arati, a small katha, and they're also going to present a skit by the Sunday school children relating to this Leela. And then we'll burn the effigy of Ravana and have Prasadam. This coming Thursday, spread the word. It's the first time we're going to celebrate Dashera at this temple, coming Thursday, 18th of October. Then Kartik begins Wednesday, 24th of October, most auspicious month of the year, Kartik. So keep that in mind. We'll be offering lamps beginning Wednesday, 24th of October. And also make a note, November 3rd. We used to have 12-hour kirtan a few years back. They are hoping to start again. November 3rd happens to be an Ekadashi, and we would like to, Kartik Ekadashi, so we'd like to begin 12-hour kirtan. November 3rd is a Saturday. So please make a date with the temple. 3rd of November, we'll be having 12-hour kirtan, 8 to 8, 8 in the morning to 8 at night. Ekadashi, you cannot go wrong. Please come and Kartik, do as much kirtan as you can on the 3rd of November. Then if you would like to know about the ongoing programs such as the yoga, the dance classes, various other classes, please visit our website for the ongoing classes at the temple, events and classes. So I will end here and we'll begin the kirtan. If you have any questions, please come and see the temple devotees. I think that's all for today. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
So, usually it's yeah, we get to dance.
Everybody stands up, you can stand up.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Uttale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachari Kirite Shunyavadi Bhattacharya Satari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Radha Srivastava Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Radha Srivastava Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Radha Srivastava Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON Bhikti Bhandharacharya Sri Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvitikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Thank you to whole Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shabbat Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki Jai. Ganga Mehi ki Jai. Yamuna Mehi ki Jai. Tulsi Devi ki Jai. Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution ki Jai. Sri Prabhupada ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol.
Mahaprasad Govinde, Namo Brahmani Vaishnave, Salpa Punya Batam Rajan, Vishwaso Nivajayate, Sandar Abhidejal, Padandriya Taekar, Jive Phale Vishesh Agare, Taranagre Divayati, Yoga Maya Sudurmati, Akidita Pasma Sansare, Krishna Baradaya Bhai, Hari Bhara Divajay, Sahab Sadhan Vilavai, Se Annamita Pao, Radha Krishna Gunagao, Devidako Sri Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadara, Radhadi Gaura Bhakta, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Madhavadi, Shri Gaurita Srinati Gopal Mahaprasad ki jai.